I stood at the edge of the forest. The trek across the desert left me burnt and beaten down, but not beaten. This beast had an uncanny ability to leave very few tracks. At times I went for days without seeing a footprint or any discernible sign, driven forward only by my desire and hope and longing to see my prey vanquished at my feet. I selected a smaller horse named Elmer for the hunt. His slight frame more adept to the desert. It would only be the two of us. For how long, I had no idea at the time. But I gave up riding him after the second week, worried that the lack of food and water had left him too weak to carry the extra weight. Each time I considered abandoning the hunt, convinced my quarry had escaped, we would have happened upon a colorful orb, deposited on the ground as if to mock me and draw us further into the desert. I carried these egg-like shapes in a basket fashioned from twigs, refusing to eat of them even as our supplies dwindled and hunger sank in. The first one that passed my lips was also the last. The feelings and sensations it espoused only further evidence of the twisted sense within this creature we chased. Suffice to say that Elmer and I spent the night discussing our favorite sporting pastime. Me being surprised to learn that while the other hounds and horses preferred the fox hunts, Elmer's always been partial to rabbit. But talking horses was weeks ago. I don't know how we survived, and it doesn't matter. We were walking out of the desert and into the cool shade of the trees. We found a stream, drank from it, and fell into a deep sleep. Again, I don't know for how long, but it is only time, and it does not matter. I awoke fully restored, my strength having returned completely. Elmer seemed to have benefited the same. I could no longer see his ribs or the sores on his legs and neck. The hunt resumed. The smallest bit of white fur told us that we were on the right track, the only possible source being a white cotton tail. Then days later we spotted another colorful egg-like article, defecated upon the ground as a signpost to point our direction, which I assumed was east. Always east. Before the canopy of the forest hid the sky, I had discerned from the stars that we were being led east. Always east. And I began to refer to the colorful orbital objects as the Eastern eggs. And so this dance continued, much as it had before. The beast fled and I followed. It was the most comfortable pursuit, the forest providing all the sustenance my horse and I required. But I eventually fell into despair, fearing that my prey had eluded me, or worse, that perhaps we were engaged in an eternal chase with no end. And as before, when my confidence was low, a colorful Eastern egg appeared in our path. But this time, when I placed it into the basket, I saw that the basket was now full and could hold no more. Over the next few weeks, we found more and more evidence that the animal was close. More tracks in the dirt and bits of the white cotton fur. But we never saw another Eastern egg. It seemed as if the full basket we carried created some kind of gravitational leash that bound the beast to us and kept it from moving farther away. The sign was getting heavier, and the chase was heating up. Then one evening, just at the failing light of dusk, I spied the great beast. And my heart leapt with fear as I saw for the first time the sheer size of the animal. I do not exaggerate in the least when I say, as I stand here today, it was 7.5 feet tall and 500 pounds if it was an ounce. I backed slowly away, knowing no mortal weapons could fell this great beast, at least none that a man and small horse can carry across the desert. I arrived back at camp a sad man, fearing that the last months were nothing but folly. I saw Elmer standing next to the basket full of eggs, and the seed of a plan began to grow in my mind. The red dawn pierced the sky the following morning. The symbolism was too much for me to even begin to contemplate. We had chased the great rabbit for months to no avail. If we were going to find success, we would have to bring it to us. So I set upon collecting the fragrant herbs and spices, these being easy to find in this magical forest. I began to whistle a song as I mixed them in a bowl with the secret ingredient, the Eastern eggs. My whistling grew to singing as my colorful cake cooked over the fire. I can neither sing nor cook now as I did that day, but the song and the scent drew the great rabbit to our camp. I made a great display of putting our weapons away and invited him to sit by the fire and enjoy our freshly baked cake. The size of the great beast prevented him from caution, knowing that he would be the victor if physical confrontation ensued. He lifted the cake, sniffed, and opened his mouth. It was greed that led him to take the whole cake into his mouth, and it was curiosity that crossed his face while he chewed. He saw an empty basket made of twigs lying on the ground. Then the sound of deep thunder boomed softly in the distance and grew louder and louder, and the beast began to look unsteady as it folded forward in pain. But instead of retching, the animal's head flew back and his eyes became wide. When its mouth opened, trumpets, tubas, cellos, barrel drums, an entire angelic orchestra thundered from deep inside the rabbit. And a blinding light flew from every opening in its head, and I averted my eyes. Music and light both grew to a deafening crescendo, holding the great beast rigid straight as it screamed to the heavens. I forced myself a sideways glance and will never forget the colors of the light streaming from its mouth and eyes up into the sky. And as the sound and light grew into such intensity, Elmer ran and I covered my ears and fell into the ground with my eyes closed, and the sound like a crash of lightning signaled the end. Next, I opened my eyes. The normal sounds of the forest had returned, but where the rabbit once stood was now only the end of a rainbow. Elmer and I began to follow it back the way we had come. The horse and I expected the journey home to be a long one, but curiously enough, we came to the edge of the forest in less than 2 days. And on the third day, we came not upon a desert, but green, fertile land. Where once there was only sand and sun, now rich soil and fragrant grasses thrived. We continued to follow the rainbow west and arrived home in 2 weeks' time. Every field we passed was thriving and thick with healthy crops. Every female of both man and beast was thick of belly and pregnant with child. I have told this tale many, many times now to my many, many grand and great-grandchildren who like to honor me once a year in the springtime. The older children hide colored eggs about the yard for their younger siblings to find, pretending to be me on my adventure so long ago. on that Sunday each year, I think about all the good things the light of the rainbow has brought us, and I look out to where the sun rises, and I remember you, oh great Eastern Bunny.